When most people hear self-care, they picture bubble baths, spa days, or maybe a Netflix night. And while those things can help in the moment, they don't get to the heart of it. Real self-care isn't just comfort, it's commitment. It's how you fuel your body, protect your energy, set boundaries, and invest in your growth. And yes, sometimes that means doing the hard things. Going to bed earlier, cooking instead of going out, or facing emotions you'd rather avoid. In this episode, we're exploring the 4 pillars of self-care and how true self-care is a lifestyle built on rest, health, growth, and connection. Because self-care isn't about escape, it's about evolution. My name's Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates, and this is the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. Today we are diving into self-care, which is a really big topic nowadays, and I think most people get it wrong. I know I did for years. So
that's because it's a very lucrative thing nowadays, isn't it?
You know, ain't that the truth?
I mean,
I never thought about it in that light, but you're so right.
It is, dude. It's a very
people selling magic pills and
just everything from miracle drugs all the way to the latest episode of something, or it's big business now. I mean,
well, let's sell distraction.
I know up there to you, and you grew up down in this area that I live in, but from here to there's probably 1,500 different spas, for example, right?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, we live in a state that's got tons and tons of natural springs where we all go to soak, and and then there's a thousand different ways you could care for yourself that way too. In a lot of ways, it's really a hijacking of the holistic healing scene. You know, some of that stuff is absolute bullcrap. Not all of it's bad. Not all of it. Much of it is good for us. But like in all things, we're going to be talking about balance today.
Yeah. I think the big thing, too, just what you're talking about for anyone listening, is like, spas, not a bad thing. Hot springs, not a bad thing. But when that is how you do self-care, if that is the way you justify staying in a spot where you were miserable and your self-care is just running away for a little bit to recharge, that's not self-care.
It might be good for you, but yeah, it's not the whole picture. It's certainly not holistic, right? Yeah, and as I was saying to you before we got on, I said something to the effect of, if self-care just becomes a habit of escape, then you're missing part of the picture. So, and I know we're going to get into that today.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, what is real self-care? I mean, we kind of did it in the intro there, but it's like, what is growth? What does self-care have to do with growth? Or what does growth have to do with self-care?
Well, I'll start off by telling you what it's not. And it is not just the bubble baths and the spa days and the Netflix binges and taking a day off, right? These things can be good, and depending on what's going on in your life, from one moment, they can be soothing. Yeah, they can. But it's not the big picture, true essence of self-care. Think of it like this: it's like pouring water on a dry field or a dry piece of dirt, right? It refreshes the soil for a moment, but it certainly doesn't sustain lasting growth. Things aren't going to grow there from pouring 1 cup of water.
I love this analogy. It's so on point, yeah. What you got to do is you got to dig into the ground, build irrigation systems, something that's going to help it water itself so it's constantly sustaining itself.
What self-care is not is indulgence. It is, think of it more like being stewardship. You are responsible for the whole thing. It is it's a discipline of tending to your mind, your body, and your spirit, so that you can endure, so that you can flourish and not just survive. And for us, we really teach this because we want our students and those who serve this path to serve. And you can't serve very well if your needs aren't met. So it's not only a comfort, but it's a responsibility that we must take. So I'll give you another example. I work up in a place where you grew up, where there's lots and lots and lots and lots of trees, right? And when new people move into the neighborhood, they'll call me. They'll say, "Hey, I need help learning how to manage my yard." Well, really, what they did was they bought a house that has a forest. Every house there has their own little tiny forest. One of the first things I tell them is, because they're usually jacked up, they're energized, they're ready to ready to cut all the stuff down that they need to cut, and they're ready to prim and trim. And I tell them, listen, I know I love the energy, but this has to become a lifestyle, right? This stuff's going to grow forever and ever and ever, and you must tend to it. And if you try to do everything all at once and front load it, you're going to burn out, and it's going to get worse. Your forest will be less healthy because you're going to get sick and tired of caring for it if you always have to pour your whole self into it. So,
well, there's another important part of this. I mean, with this analogy you're using, I just got to bring this up, is a lot of us, we get motivated to do something, and it can really apply to self-care, where it's like, I want to do this one step, which is the primming and the pruning and the cutting things down. And there's also the backlog. You know, if you're someone who wants to create in your free time, create. Yeah. But then what do you do from there? So it's like, in this instance, you're going to have to get all those things mulched and shredded, because if you don't do that, it's going to pile up and make a fire hazard and all these things.
Right.
So you can't just do this one, like the watering. That's not sustainable, because you're just adding water for temporary relief. You gotta focus your self-care on something that is sustainable and will carry into your life, and not just offer up temporary relief.
Yeah. So the question we have to ask: are we truly taking care of ourselves, or are we just seeking temporary relief? So one of the answers to this, one path leads to strength and freedom, and the other leads to a slow decay. So this axiom of light reminds us of that. Decay comes from complacency. If we only chase comfort, which we've talked about in a couple of shows now, we allow neglect to take hold of us, right? To take root.
Yeah.
Because that real self-care requires intention and habit development and discipline, not complacency. So, and our agreements that we use call us to a higher place, right? Responsibility. We are responsible for tending the vessel of light that has been entrusted to us. No one else on earth is going to do a better job than you of taking care of you. And neglect of yourself is a neglect of your purpose, for your purpose of existence, right? We also have to learn to, your favorite P word, patience, right? This kind of care that we're talking about it takes time. And the results aren't instant, but cultivated through this kind of consistency. We must respect ourselves. We have to, and that begins with respecting our own needs and limitations. So what self-care is not is about escape, as you said. But really, for my mind, it's more like preparing ourselves for a future need. It's about becoming strong enough to withstand all these things that come at us day to day, but compassionate enough to serve ourselves without resentment, and do the hard thing and develop those disciplined habits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we just did an episode on this, the comfort zone, right? It's we're constantly just looking to cushion our existence, and we're allowing that comfort zone to shrink in of complacency. It's so important that we keep pushing against because we're wired to constantly crave the path of least resistance. And so that's why people get stuck in this loop, and that's why self-care is important. But self-care is not just to help cushion the life, it is to help expand. You know, it's like this weekend, Allison and I went camping. We did a lot of hard work on this property, but it's like in our downtime, our rest time included us sitting there and reading books. Trying to expand. I got a physical copy of the book we're doing our book review on, and I was just reading a couple chapters, digesting, sitting with it. I was resting with intention.
What book is that going to be, just so these folks know what book to read?
The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I think that's his name, yeah.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. I will say I've never loved a physical copy book so much, because the chapters are just like 5 pages and not a ton of words. And it's just like, I keep finding myself, I'll read it and I'll have to put it down to really absorb the information from the few pages I just read. I love it. So
it's really easy to limit self-care to just something like rest and relaxation, right? And while those things are important and they do matter, they are only one tiny little piece of that much larger picture, right?
Yeah.
And true self-care must be holistic, touching every dimension of our being, the mind, the body, the heart, and the spirit. So let's define this holistically. Yeah. What does physical health look like with self-care?
You know, when it comes to physical health, it's like it's nutrition. It's eating good and not trying to eat delicious. It's exercise, being willing to put your body through the motions, get some of that energy out of you, build that endurance so you are more endurant during hard times. It's making sure you get plenty of sleep. You know, I think many people think rest is an option, and it's not. If you're not getting that full sleep, you're going to burn yourself out. And, you know, there's hygiene. You know, you want to look good. You want to present yourself in a way that you're proud of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean go buy designer clothes. It means just take care of yourself.
Yeah. And yes, rest is sacred, because without it, from time to time we burn out, right? We talked about that a few shows ago. We talked about burnout. But it can't be the only definition of self-care. So, because if it is, it becomes avoidance instead of restoration, like I was saying. Think of rest as being a tool in the greater toolbox. It's not, you know, the screwdriver is not the toolbox, but the screwdriver can be included in the toolbox. So emotional care, we're talking about boundaries. Those are self-care.
Yeah.
We're talking about processing our emotions. If journaling's your thing, then journal or seek therapy, or these things are self-care if you need them.
Yeah.
Emotional hygiene prevents us from carrying wounds into every space we enter.
God, yeah.
Right? So let's talk about energetic hygiene. Is that a concept that you're familiar with?
Yeah, to a degree. I know it's energetic hygiene is, you know, we start cluttering up all this crap we go through. We bulldoze through life and just keep brushing things off our shoulders and keeping things to ourselves. I see this throughout my family where it's just people don't want to talk about what's going on in their lives because it's either they don't want to be a burden, they don't want to be seen as weak, or they feel that it's not okay to be human. Mm-hmm. And it slowly creates this deep resentment and just anger to the world. It can make us reactive. And I mean, it brings all these things from the past that we haven't dealt with into the present. And even if we're not like, you remind me of so and so who pissed me off, it is just that simple act of someone doing something that brings back the emotion, brings us right back to that point in time where we're as angry about the guy who accidentally cut us off as we were from the guy who ran their shopping cart into our cart because they had a bad day and we were pissed off. We didn't do anything about it.
Right. No, all that stuff too. It's really the practice of tending to your subtle energy body. We are layered as beings, not just the fleshy stuff, not just the things we think, not just the things we feel, but it goes on outward, right? So this field of life force, it could be prana, chi, call it Ashla, call it whatever, it surrounds and flows through you. And just like dirt and germs and stuff can build up on us from being outside and doing stuff, so can heavy emotions, other people's projections, as you've said, negative environments. We talked about this in another show here about how we share energy, right?
Yeah.
This kind of stuff dirties up our energy body. So what this energetic hygiene is basically, it's clearing what doesn't belong.
Yep.
Making strong what does belong, and protecting your light, protecting your energy. So, and why it's important, why does this matter? Well, because the more grimy you get, the more vulnerable you are to people stealing your energy, or you reacting in certain ways, or, you know, everything becoming heavy upon you. And energy vampires, which we're doing a show about that soon with our friend Brenda. That'll be in October. So when we talk about energy hygiene, energetic hygiene, we're talking about, you know, taking time to remove that heavy energy, that stagnant energy. And we're talking about grounding ourselves to the energies of the earth, being out in nature, touching the grass, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Shielding and protecting ourselves and refilling our cup when we run it over, when we pour it all out too many times. So I just wanted to kind of touch upon, you know, energetic hygiene with this topic, because it is an important part of this. And we'll really dive into energetic hygiene when we meet with Brenda next month. So what about mental health?
And I think mental health is another big one because, you know, if you don't deal with your crap, your mind gets cluttered and you get into rumination, you get into just being stuck playing out the same pains, problems, and paranoias that you've always had.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure your mind is decluttered. Get into healthy routines that help inspire you and make you feel good. If you're a hoarder, start working through that clutter, because it ends up becoming your mental state. Continued learning, which is one I think most people really don't realize how important it is. When we don't allow ourselves to continue to grow our awareness and understanding, if we're watching Netflix all the time instead of reading a good, healthy book on some of the issues you're going on in daily life, because there is 100 books for every problem in the world. Like, you can research and study, hey, how can I go about things different? How can I grow and expand? It can be anything from child raising to
caring for
anxiety. But it's like, it's really... Oh, again, we were reading books when we were out camping because that was something that helped us grow, but was also a restful practice. And through that, it gives you new tools to apply to life. And there's nothing better than when you have something click in your brain that adds 20% efficiency to your life. Or, in turn, gives you a skill that allows you to level up your career. It's like, I'm in school now. That was the one thing where I started with self-help books and different types of psychology books. And yes, a lot of the time we'll read this information and not really be able to practice it. But as we develop more and more of this knowledge, it then helps us grow into a place where we can go into, like, I got back into school after a couple of years of doing that. And I have been flourishing in school because I had that practice built up beforehand. So I was able to sort of dive in, and I could read like I would have been able to if I started after high school.
Right. So, and finally, self-care must include tending to our soul. And this is things like aligning with our purpose, aligning with the flow of the universe, aligning with our values and our authenticity. Things like prayer, meditation, time in nature, touching the grass.
And one of these things...
Climbing up high enough to touch the sky, which we can do here in Colorado. If you've ever been up Pikes Peak, you'll know when you can't breathe, when you're touching the sky.
Yeah, right? Well, and it's just like when it comes to if you're struggling knowing what your purpose or authenticity is, get the hell off the couch and go out into the world and go try new things. There are groups and meetups everywhere. Facebook, Meetup, Eventbrite. Go do it. Stop pondering what is my purpose or what is it I like to do. Get out there and discover it if you don't know what that is.
And even if you don't find your purpose, you'll definitely start to build a community around yourself.
And learn about yourself. At the bare minimum, you'll be like, I really didn't like that. Or,
you definitely
wow,
will learn.
That was a blast.
You'll definitely learn what you don't like and like.
No.
But you'll find a lot of support out there. There really is. So you mentioned something about these pillars of self-care. What are those?
Yeah, so the pillars of self-care, I think this is just a great way to look at how to organize self-care. And you've got rest and recovery, health and vitality, personal development, and connection and boundaries. And it's these four things that help us protect our peace and enter into a growth mindset. So when it comes to rest and recovery, that's the spa days. That's the laying in bed and watching Netflix, relaxing. That is only one part of this.
Yeah.
Then you dive into health and vitality, exercise, diet, hydration, medical check-ins, getting yourself looked at and making sure you're doing all right.
Yeah.
And then personal development, like we were talking earlier, Go do a workshop, go read a book, go take a class. There's tons of different ways that you can develop yourself and learn to grow. There's many avenues that we all could use, like financial wellness. We could take financial classes. We can do couples groups where we go with our spouse or partner and just work on each other through an atmosphere like that. I mean, there's so many ways we can work on personal development. And then connections and boundaries. Everyone in this world seems to be so against people. I see this everywhere. People hate people. And it blows my mind because we all secretly crave connection.
Yes.
And I say this because you might be listening like, I don't crave connection. It is an unconscious thing. It is a part of our being.
You just don't like the people that you've surrounded yourself with.
Yeah.
You need connection. Trust me.
When
the right people come along, you go, this is what I've been missing. These are my people. Right?
Yeah, we need more community.
It's why when we talk about the 12 agreements of Ashla, one of those is family. And family is not just who you're born to or stuck with. Because the truth is, you're not stuck to anybody or with anyone. You get to choose at some point in your life, maybe not when you're little, but once you are old enough to go out into the world, you then get to choose where you spend your time and energy and who you spend it with. And these covenants that you create, that's the strongest bonds that exist, you know. So you will create community, you will crave that connection. And we're going to do just another preview of another show that we're going to do later this month, is that we're going to record later this month. I don't know when it's actually going to hit, but it's about heaven or hell, right? And not the literal heaven or hell, like harps and clouds and fire and brimstone. It's about connection versus disconnection. And connection is a very powerful thing. It puts you into heaven or it puts you into hell. And that show will be coming up. I'm not sure when, like I said, when we'll put it out, but you and I will be recording it here soon. Yeah. So, you know.
One thing I got to add to this is if you're someone who is isolating and you struggle with connection, you can't hold the sins of the past to the people you deal with. It doesn't mean accept everyone with open arms right away, and trust them all the way. But it does mean you have to go with a fresh new set of eyes when you go and interact with others. Because the minute you try to have a bias against someone, that's all you're going to see. You're going to look for their flaws, you're going to judge them, and it's going to be based off of nothing they're doing but on your own past. So try to not bring the past into those new connections as you try to search for new people and meet people.
Well, even on old connections, right? How many times have you walked into a family gathering and people still think you're 12? They have.
Good point.
Right? So it's important for us on our end when people try to reconnect with us that we try to see them where they are, meet them where they're at, because maybe they've grown and maybe they haven't. Who knows, right? But you'll never know if you don't give them a chance. Now, we're not talking about people who have abused you or hurt you maliciously. You know, you owe them nothing. Even if they've grown, you owe them nothing. They must carry the sins of their past, right? Not you. Yeah. So true rest is a medicine, probably one of the greatest medicine that we can find, right? True rest, sleep, you know, downtime when it's used wisely. Because without proper rest, even the strongest body and the sharpest mind begins to what? Unravel. Yeah,
starts to deteriorate a little bit.
Starts to unravel.
Well, it's like we talk on here. It's like I do 100-hour plus weeks, and it's like I have to make sure that I accommodate rest in my schedule. I have to make sure that I at least have one day a week where I get that 8+ hours of sleep, and even on the days I don't, that I get a minimal of 5 to 7, like minimal, because I know if I work myself to death, the work I produce is going to be garbage, and I'm going to end up spiraling with everything I'm trying to do and not be able to manage it. Rest is necessary.
Yeah, it is. Your body's a temple. You must care for it with careful and mindful attention, right? You have to care for it with movement and good nutrition and hydration and regular check-ins. Make sure it's good. Make sure it's holding together. Because vitality, the good health doesn't come from chance or just good genes. It comes from choices that we repeat daily. And, you know, we were talking about before, what is life without good health? It's not great. I'm sure many of you out there can attest to this. So it's important, but it's never too late. I know people will say, it's too late for me. You know, I tend to not keep that kind of mindset because, you know, I believe in divine timing. I was just talking to a friend I haven't talked to in many years. He just called me out of the blue today to talk to me about the podcast because he's seeing the little clips we put out and stuff. And he was calling to talk to me about, you know, what we were doing and all this and that. You know, he had said to me that he's over 60 now, and he's now realizing that he has to care for his temple, basically. Yeah. And he said that, you know, it may or may not be too late. And I said, there's no bad time to start, right?
Yeah.
There's no bad time to start. As far as personal development goes, obviously, based on this podcast, personal development is very, very important to us.
Yep.
Building those habits and building and learning those skills and caring for the things in our life that help sustain us, like our finances, practicing disciplines,
exercise,
being respectful of ourselves. And here's why growth is self-care, because it expands our capacity. I think you've said it many times. It is growing our vessel, right? strengthening our vessel, making our vessel so that we can hold more, right? And so that when our vessel drops, it's not easily broken or easily shaken, and we are better prepared to serve. So, and
when it's like, when you look at it, self-care isn't just self-care. Self-care is a discipline. It is not indulgence. It is a discipline that we must incorporate into our lives. Yeah, practice. Like, we're telling you all this. This does not mean go buy 10 books, go start running marathons. It's a step-by-step growth mentality.
It's a lifestyle.
Meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah. Just like with the people who move into the forest. It's like, because we do get energized. Like, oh man, that's it. I've had enough. I'm going to start doing this tomorrow. And this is what I'm going to do. And then they go running, they go bulldozing through it, right? Yeah. And they run out of steam about halfway through. This is why, like when we talk about this, think about resolutions that we all make on New Year's. A show of hands of who's still going with at least one or two of your New Year's resolutions. Show of hands.
Not much more than that, though.
No, not much more than that. Because we get really fired up about thinking about it. We get really fired up about planning. That's fun to plan this stuff, right? Man, it's so fun. But you run out of steam because, remember what we talked about before? You don't get what you want, you get what you attract. You attract what you feel, what you resonate with. And if you're really not resonating with this, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to sustain it, right? So
the bill will always come due, right?
It does. It does. So when we look at self-care through these, in the context of these 4 pillars, the rest, vitality, development, and connection, we see it for what it is. Not indulgence, but discipline, like we're saying. Not escape, but alignment, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're sacrificing short-term comfort for long-term self-respect, which is huge.
So speaking of discipline, let's talk about that, how it is discipline and not indulgence.
I heard this interview, I may have referenced this before, between Matthew Hussey, who's one of my favorite attachment relationship coaches, and Drew Barrymore. And
she's great, isn't she?
She is. She's amazing. She is a sweetheart. But in that interview, he's like, imagine this, Drew. You were put here on this planet for one purpose. And that purpose is to take care of someone special. Just one person. That is the whole reason you were put on this planet. And that person that you need to take care of, you need to show compassion for, you need to love and push and do everything you can so they have the best life they can, is you. And that is why you were put here, is to take care of you. And it doesn't mean be selfish or screw everyone else or screw people over. It means that you need to be your own priority. You will never be anyone else's top priority. Or if you are, there's probably a toxic dynamic going on within your relationships. You have to prioritize yourself and put yourself at the top of what's important to you, including over everybody else. Which isn't always
comfortable, is it?
No.
It's not.
No.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's really fun, but it's not always that way. It's not always comfortable. Because as we said, it's not just about taking one day off. It's about taking care of
somebody who's a people pleaser.
Like,
right. I spent so much time sacrificing my needs to appease others. And at the time, I would have been like, nah, this is just easier. It's less drama. I get to do what I want after, whatever excuse I'd make. But on the whole, when I was making myself smaller to accommodate other people's own making themselves the priority, that led to a slow loss of myself.
Yeah. Well, it's about taking care of a future you, right? It's about making these choices right now that tomorrow you will thank you for. Like, oh, I'm so glad, Think about it, right? Meal prepping or budgeting or exercising. Going to bed early may not feel glamorous, and it sucks sometimes. And especially if you're like me, you kind of feel like you're missing out on stuff,
Yeah.
Especially if you hear people talking and they're laughing, and you're like, oh man, I'm missing something fun. But they're not fun and they're not glamorous, but they are acts of self-respect.
Yep.
They protect your future self, your future energy, your future clarity, your stability. Stability is a really big one because this world is chaotic enough to where we're not sure how stable things are going to be from day to day. So if we can make choices today that helps grant that stability later, this is just as much self-care stuff as, you think about your meditation retreats or your whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. This is where the discipline part comes in. Self-care then is the line between short-term comfort, which we all tend to gravitate to because that's what we like to do, and long-term strength. So that short-term indulgence says, I think I'll do what feels good now.
Yep.
We don't think about what it costs us later, right? But
Yeah,
discipline says, I will do what serves me now so that I can flourish later.
When it's like, man, the self-respect that comes when you are doing hard things, that when you start getting out of that indulgence, because I know for me, when I was stuck in like working a dead-end job in a hellish relationship, and I'd have these moments that I gave myself for self-care, it's like I never respected myself for it. If anything, I would get in my head like, look what you're doing. You're not even doing anything with your life, blah, 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 blah. And that's that whole mental health hygiene we were talking about earlier, like facing the voice and letting it, teaching it different. But it's, you get self-respect as you start doing hard things. You know, so Luna Girls, I love this, all right? That is self-care. Going to their events, there's a couple uncomfortable moments, and for them it's like, it's not just indulgence. I remember going and they were doing ice baths, and it was like, oh God, here we go. And it was like, you know what? I can do hard things. And that was one of the most empowering things I had ever done. It was amazing.
So when it comes to discipline, this is what the axioms of light remind us. What is done in haste will perish. What is done with patience will endure. The demand for immediate progress will produce slow results. So chasing comfort and this quick relief, it undermines us. It's the steady, consistent care that builds upon itself and into a foundation that will last. There's another one that we talk about a lot because it's very powerful. Those who muddle through life will never understand it. Knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment come only from a disciplined and contemplative mind.
I love that axiom.
Discipline is self-care because it keeps us from drifting aimlessly, right?
Yeah.
So we have some agreements too. Courage. Discipline requires courage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it requires sacrifice of the moment, of this momentary comfort or momentary ease or whatever. And I would throw justice in here. That might throw you off a little bit. I throw justice in here because fairness, because justice is fairness, right? Fairness means honoring your own well-being as much as the needs of others. Putting it up there. And I would argue, like you, that it should be just above everyone else.
Yeah. My whole mentality, 51% selfish, 49% selfless.
There you go. There you go. So if we had to redefine self-care, not as indulgence, but as discipline, it's like the budgeting that keeps you from financial ruin. It's the boundaries that keep you from burning out, right? It's that sleep schedule that sucks because you miss everything, but it keeps you clear-minded and keeps you rested. So these are the habits that keep us strong enough to be of service. And again, it's not about escaping life. It's about preparing yourself to fully enjoy it and live it.
So what are some practical tools people can start utilizing to start really getting into a healthy form of self-care?
Boundaries as a self-care. That's one I really like. That's saying no without guilt. That's protecting your time so that you can rest, so that you can pray, or protecting your time so that you can spend time with family or by yourself. Not compromising your health for people's desires, or, right? Recognizing which relationships nourish you and which ones drain you. So
that's a good one.
Boundaries bring clarity to what is healthy and what is harmful at the end of the day.
Yeah. And another thing is, it's not just boundaries with other people, it's boundaries with yourself.
Yes, yeah.
You don't need that extra cookie.
You want it, but you don't need it. I don't have a problem with cookies. You know this.
Yo.
I'm not tempted by sweets.
You don't need that extra piece of steak.
I know. I don't need that extra steak.
That's so hard to say. No, for me, I think one of the biggest things you can do
is enough of them, and you'll change your tune. I promise.
Yeah, right. But routines, man, that is my saving grace. There is nothing more important, you know. When you go to bed, do the whole brushing the teeth and whatever routine you need to, journal. The more you can start making the changes you want to make a habit and incorporate it into a system that flows, the more you can start embodying it, and it becomes effortless. So,
right.
I mean, morning routines, evening routines. Alice and I, we get up at 5 in the morning. We go for a walk. I take a shower, make a cup of coffee, on some kind of podcast I know is going to be thought-provoking on my hour commute, and that helps get my brain going. And it's just that little routine has self-care of exercise. It has, because I like to meditate in the shower, so I'll sit in the shower for like an extra 5-10 minutes just to sort of let my mind do its thing and to just bring myself to the present moment. So I got meditation in there. Then I got education.
Just real quick, there's a good there's a good shower meditation that was in the book, the meditation book I wrote years ago, that was given to us by a mentor friend of mine.
Oh,
a fellow
wow.
mentor. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I got it on my shelf, so.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah, try it out. Anyways, sorry.
But yeah, routines, man. Routines are
Yeah.
a godsend when it comes to trying to formulate new good habits. And again, kind of like we were talking about earlier with New Year's resolutions, don't do major life shifts. These are slow, incremental changes. And the more we can do subtle shifts, the more we can start creating good habits. You know, do mini habits, a 5-minute stretch, or maybe 1 page of a book, 1 glass of water before your glass of coffee. Like, find a way to stack your habits or your goals next to things you're already doing and make them just digestible. You try to become someone new overnight, you ain't going to sustain it. That's just how it works.
No, because you may not like who you're trying to turn into, because you're not doing it. You're not unfolding. You're just changing one costume for another, right?
Yeah, exactly.
These little micro things, they're seeds. You're just planting seeds. Seeds. Another one that I really like is different kinds of connection practices. We talked about connecting. Ashla is connecting. Ashley is connected. We are connected, whether we like it or not. I try to say that at least once every episode. We're all connected to everything in all of creation, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
There, I said it. But self-care includes belonging. You talked about the Saluna girls earlier. You walk in there, you are a member of the family. You are a member of their community. It's awesome.
You feel it in everyone, too.
You
It's not
do.
just they try to be welcoming. It's everyone who's come more than 2-3 times feels a sense of family there where they can be themselves.
I went once and I felt that way.
Yeah.
So cultivating friendships, cultivating community, familiar bonds. Scratch that word out.
Familiar belong. So.
Yeah, I have trouble with that word. Call someone you love. I got a call today, like out of the blue, as I was talking about earlier. It changed my whole day. I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I don't think I've ever talked to that dude on the phone once since we've known each other. We always talked in person. He called me today, which was awesome.
You know, if you want to even go the extra level, one of the things I do every month, I try to make sure I talk to all the people that are like 1 out of 10, 7 tier or higher, which is a good 20 people. Yeah. I try to make sure that I talk to them at least once a month or see them once a month. And I try to go for the see. It's just all about if my schedule allows it.
Right.
But it's like I try to be diligent about my connections to keep them healthy, keep them growing. And it's good for me, too, because it helps me keep that way, too.
Right. It is. Join a group that is aligned with your values and your life practices, right? We were just talking about Saluna. There are these places that are built for that, and you can go and fit right in. Practice.
We're building one of those.
Huh? Well, yeah, we will be, right? We're working on it. Practice generosity in not only giving but receiving as well. Connect. So,
man, I want to touch on that actually.
Keeps us alive, right? It's my view that belonging keeps us alive. Belonging, connection, these things are part of the purpose. So
I was just going to touch on how giving and receiving, so many of us struggle with receiving, and that was something I struggled with for years. And my motto is, like, if someone offers something to me twice, I will accept it, unless I know it's going to be used for manipulation, but that's very, very rare. But it's, people love to give gifts. Don't be a jerk and deny them that privilege. Allow yourself the grace to accept gifts from others, whether that's treating you to dinner or just giving you something thoughtful or something personal. I see a lot of people struggling with that.
I did for a long time. But I stopped doing it once I realized that there's a flow to everything, and there's a flow to generosity, and gratitude is part of that. And as we talked about before, when we did the show about abundance and stuff, there's a flow to abundance, and part of that is being generous, but also grateful. So gratitude and generosity, and if you dishonor one of those two things or both, you plug up that flow. it off. You block it off, right? And then you're wondering why. Well, how come abundance hasn't flown to me or flowed to me in a while? Well, maybe look and see if you're plugging up the works there. So what are some barriers?
Beat me to the punch. That's exactly where I wanted to go next with this.
Professor X on you, man.
I don't appreciate that. I'll get me a helmet.
The little circles came out.
We start having that going on at the show. I'll have the Magneto helmet. Halloween, we know what we're doing now.
Yep. And I'm not shaving my head, though. I'm not shaving my head.
Get a cap. We'll just get you something that looks like wheelchair handles to put on your arms of your chair.
Yeah. It just looks like that cool.
You have to sit like this all episode, though.
I gotta sit like what?
So some of the barriers to self-care, man, guilt for putting yourself first. That was my biggest one. I still struggle with it to this day. But learning it's okay to prioritize yourself, to say no, to do what you want to do instead of what everyone else wants to do. Balance, but it's important to prioritize that.
Generosity, which is one of our agreements. Caring for yourself allows your generosity to multiply, not diminish, right? You're able to serve more and better if you are taken care of first. There's an axiom that ties into this. The master can continue to give indefinitely, for his or her wealth is their knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Real giving flows from abundance, not exhaustion. So you have to remember that. And I get people feel guilty. I live with someone who suffers from that terribly. I almost have to have her arrested and dragged off somewhere so that she can rest and so that she could do things to take care of herself. Because she really does fall into some guilt trips. And nobody's guilting her, she's guilting herself, right? Don't feel guilty for that, right? You have to prioritize yourself. Because they have this mindset, right, Michael? If you say, oh my God, I can't put myself first because then I'm stealing that time and attention away from others, right? But if you don't tend to your vessel, you have nothing left to give. So then you're not serving anybody or anything. And now you need help, right? What about those who wait until they burn out to finally act upon their self-care?
Yeah. All right, I know right where you're going with this.
Not calling myself out here or anything, right?
Well, I think you got there right before it happened. The red flags started going off, kind of brushed them off, and now all of a sudden it's getting louder. It's like, all right, I need to listen before it gets to the point of burnout.
Right.
And I think that when people wait till burnout, which is kind of what happened to me, it's not just self-care to allow yourself to function. Self-care becomes mandatory, or you're going to die or lose yourself to the darkness. Self-care is meant to be preventative, not a cure.
Decay comes from complacency, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Maximum of light. If you're neglecting tending to yourself until a crisis happens, that rot has kind of already started to set in.
Yeah.
And then you go through a lot of very uncomfortable, sometimes actually painful things to try and get yourself back to center, back to good. What about the comfort trap?
Man, I tell you what. Again, it's like you start noticing your self-care goes from exercise and reading books to sitting at home watching that Netflix all the time. Yeah. Self-care, man, the comfort zone trap. It's just so easy to fall into because it's human nature. We don't keep being diligent about our efforts, our habits, that it'll start shrinking. And it's okay to take a day off. It's okay. You're sick for a couple days. That is fine. But the longer you take to resolve the issue, the harder it's going to be. You know, I love one of the things that I started practicing is when I would get into a habit is I'm allowed to take a day off. But I'm not going to be able to take two unless it's something like sickness or just something happens in life where it's unavoidable.
Right.
But the rule of thumb, I can miss a day, but I can't miss two.
Yeah, right. Short-term relief, I won't say it always does, but it can become long-term bondage. Comfort trap. The comfort zone trap, right? And so self-care requires honesty. And asking yourself point blank, am I nourishing myself or am I numbing myself? Am I practicing responsibility or avoiding it like the plague? Which many do. True self-care takes patience, courage, and responsibility.
Am I caring for myself or am I enabling myself?
Right.
So that's the big one I had to look at with me, is so often it's like when I fall into these bad habit loops, is like I am enabling this behavior and finding justifications for it. What are the beneficial outcomes of this habit I'm creating, which usually would result in nothing other than the numbing aspect. And it's like, all right, let's reevaluate.
Well, you get a choice. You get a choice. Do you want to live in exhaustion, total holistic exhaustion, or do you want to live in abundance? You know, choose your adventure. One of those is going to feel a lot better in the moment than the other, but one of them is going to create a foundational platform for you to stand upon in the future, and one will not. One will be crumbling and rotting away. So you have a choice. You really do have a choice. You know, I'd rather regret the moment than regret the future. So,
well, it's like you look at Eric Erickson's stages, and the last stage is pretty much not industry. I'm going to butcher it if I try to say what it is, but it's virtually, Erickson talks about different stages of our lives. We fall into two categories. As a kid, it's realizing identity versus industry. And as we move up into like the later years of adulthood, that's where you go into, what have I made in my life? Who have what my family, the contributions I've made to community and the world. And if you don't fall into that category, which sadly most people don't, then you fall into the category of just regret. And like the phrasing for it is even just so, I'm going to look this up. Ego integrity or despair. And it's that your life has aligned with your values and you have created something meaningful, or you're in despair because you realize you've wasted your whole life. Yeah. Don't be that person. And unfortunately, majority of the population falls into this.
I think we've all met some very bitter old folks. But at the same time, we know people, we all know at least one person probably, hopefully more than one, that has created way more memories than regrets.
Yep. This is how you fall on that line, or how to cross that line. So how do we start integrating self-care into daily life?
Well, because we know that it doesn't work if it's only something that we reach for when life has already kind of overwhelmed us, right? We've gotten there. Yeah. So to be effective, it has to be woven into our daily life. So, and again, it's not a retreat that we escaped into. Although retreat is a valid battle strategy, but only if you have a reason for and you're doing something during that retreat time. We need to create a rhythm, habits, right? This kind of micro care versus this macro self-care. So these are the little things. The micro is the little things you talked about earlier, hydration and taking deep breaths in between moments at work or at play or wherever. But mindfully taking big breaths and deep breaths, right? Stretching and journaling. And these keep us balanced moment by moment. These kinds of things help us start to... have you ever done any kind of, rehab? Like muscle rehab or bone rehab? Okay. So the thing they teach us at rehab, right, is not building up those big muscles that we have, but by re-strengthening the little tiny muscles that we don't even see, that we don't even know, right? And getting those, because all of our balance comes from those. All of our, our big leg muscles don't give us balance. It's all of the balancing muscles that are under the skin. You can't see them. So that's kind of, the analogy I use.
That's a good analogy for this. I know, because I was like, how would I phrase this? But no, that's a great way to look at it. You need these little muscles to support the bigger muscles to help make it all fully functional. You look at a lot of these people who get into bodybuilding for the first time, and they realize they messed up completely when they're only working 3 muscles for their entire regiment for the week. Right. And after about a year or two, all of a sudden, it's like, wow, I don't have mobility. I can only move so much, and I'm actually really weak if I have to go this way instead of just this.
And you start tearing and breaking and ripping stuff. That is very painful to do. So the macro stuff, that's the bigger stuff. That's like the retreats and going to therapy and taking vacation days. These help restore us when we've gone deeper into the depletion. But the micro stuff helps keep us balanced and helps stave off some of this really horrible stuff, the big stuff, right? Yeah. So both of these matter, and knowing when to use each is wisdom. It's the little stuff that's going to create your habits. But even though I'll just admit this, even though you do build a good habit of these little things, sometimes we do just have to go, dude, I'm going on vacation for 5 days down to a beach somewhere, and I'm not doing anything but drinking margaritas and eating tacos or whatever. Sometimes it gets there, but that can't be the go-to all the time. We have to learn to build these small little habits that help keep us strong and balanced.
Well, and again, it's like it's about creating routine. If you try to just willpower your way into these changes, it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to last. How many times have you set a goal and you've gone chasing after it with all your heart just to fall short? It's not because your heart's not in it, but it's because it's just not sustainable. When it's in a routine, when it's balanced with your lifestyle, which takes time, modification, and a slow integration of each of these, and not all at once. Again, patience and diligence. You gotta start small. It's micro changes that make a difference. Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of my favorite books. And that's what he talks about. It's the book on habits. And the big lesson out of the whole book is if you try to make dramatic shifts in your life, they do not hold up. You got to stack habits and do small micro shifts. If you are smoking cigarettes, find a way to replace that habit. So if you smoke a cigarette before you brush your teeth, that's when you should go for a walk because you are now switching out the habit. Learn about habits, learn about routine, and learn how to slowly, and I can't stress this enough, slowly integrate this stuff into your life. Because that's what will make it stick.
And what you're talking about is those of us who, which is most of us, try to rely on willpower for everything, right? Nobody's willpower has that much stamina. It will fade under stress, right? 100%. So, and what you're talking about now is like, this habit stacking. Right? I think that's what you're kind of talking about.
That is what I was going for, yep.
Yeah. What about blocking off your calendar? Scheduling your rest, scheduling your exercise, and scheduling your reflection the way you would schedule meetings. I think they're just as important, right?
Yeah. I tell you what, just on that topic, I had a crazy busy week. I knew I was going to go down on my brother's property, help him do some work down there. I knew I had tons of studying for a math test and a math test this week. And I mean, I was pretty much busy from start to stop to finish all week. To the time I went to bed, I was busy. So when it came to the night we got back, it was like, I'm going to sleep in tomorrow. I'm not going to stay up late like I normally do. I'm going to bed at 10. And I had that in my calendar because I wanted to make sure that I knew for myself before I started getting advantageous, this night is for rest, and you will rest.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're talking about is creating disciplines based on discipline, or creating systems based on discipline, creating a structure, because again, our willpower, if you rely solely on your willpower all the time, it will fail you. It just has to. It does. Because if you build a foundation, if you create these little system that we're talking about, discipline helps hold things up without the struggle, without the stress. So accountability partners, those are important too.
Yeah. Like this podcast, man, I tell you what, I've wanted a podcast for years, but there were so many areas I knew I would struggle with personally that I know I could have gotten there with constant effort of trying new things until it stuck. But on the whole, I had you jump in, we decided to do this together, and that helped keep me accountable and showing up twice a week to make sure we record, do the stuff, and God, accountability partners are just a godsend.
They are. They are. If you're a client to someone for whatever reason, make sure that they are a good accountability partner. Make sure that they feel comfortable holding you accountable, or else it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a struggle. So integrating the self-care into our daily life is the difference between surviving and thriving. I talk about that a lot because it's really important. We're trying to move out of survival and into thriving, to living. Survival isn't really living very well.
It's just
I know for some of us,
by.
it's the best we can do at the moment, right?
Yep.
But we should always be trying to move into thriving. So, and you really, again, you have a choice to make. You can make a care a covenant for yourself, or a convenience. Micro care, macro care, these systems built on discipline are how we start to learn responsibly, and how we live responsibly and courageously, and why not gracefully. I love grace. I love the word grace.
I do too.
Yeah.
When it's vital. I mean, self-care isn't a one-time event. All right, you go to the spa, you come home, that's it. Self-care is practices built to better yourself and above all, better your life. To learn to move from survival. I love how you said that. From survival to thriving. Because when we do that, when we can start building a life of meaning, of authenticity, and above all, of doing things that we enjoy, which I know a lot of this self-care we talked about isn't necessarily things that are fun off the bat, but as we
Right.
start moving into them, as it starts to become a practice, there's a sense of pride that comes with it. There's a sense of self-respect you cultivate as you keep showing up for yourself and making yourself number one when it comes to your discipline.
Well, you always hear about people, like we've all heard people, we've probably said this. Someone will say, man, I love to run. And you look at them like, you love to run? They did not love to run at first. Promise you that. Man, I love going to the gym 5 days a week. Some people are like, what? They didn't love it at first. I promise you that. Because, look, I'll leave you with this as my kind of closing thoughts here. Self-care is not indulgence. It's a responsibility. Again, it's that covenant that we make with ourselves to nourish our mind and our body and our spirit so that we can shine in the world without burning out. Because without it, we drift towards exhaustion and we start to rot and decay from the inside. But with it, we grow in strength and patience and grace. There's an axiom that I'll share with you. Nourish the mind, body, and spirit with the substance of virtue and righteousness. That is not just a suggestion. It is it's a necessity, right? It's this axiom in our agreements call us to responsibility, call us to be patient, call us to be respectful. And that all begins with how we treat ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a discipline. It's saying no when you need to say no. It's resting when you need to rest. It's learning when you can learn. It's tending to your spirit daily. So, and in doing so, you're not only serving yourself, you serve your family, your people, your community, and you serve the very light itself. So I'll leave you with a question. Where have you mistaken comfort for care? Right?
Yeah.
Where have you neglected the vessel entrusted to you, as you said, Michael?
Yeah.
So, it's not selfish. I just want you to remember this. It's not selfish. Consider it sacred. Tend to that flame that you were entrusted to. And you'll have more to give in the end. And you'll have more to endure and more to share. So, that's where I'll leave it today for me.
Man, that was a great ending thought right there. And to those listening, I'm challenging you right now. Call to action. Pick one thing you want to change in your life. Is it rest? Is it exercise? Is it going out and meeting people? Choose one thing and do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to go great. Again, those people who love running, they did not start off loving running. Just get out there, do it, and build the practice. Biggest trap people fall into when it comes to cultivating these types of changes in their life is they get stuck in planning and premeditating. Action is where the magic happens. And that is what you have to rely on when you want to start doing these things. Well, let's jump into our affirmative prayer. Close our eyes. Today, I choose to honor myself in body, mind, and spirit. I release the belief that self-care is selfish, and I embrace it as sacred. I trust that when I care for myself, I create the energy, clarity, and love to care for others as well. May my rest renew me, my breath steady me, and my body grow strong through the choices I make. May I have the courage to set boundaries, to say no when I need to, and to protect the peace that sustains me. May my heart remain open, my mind stay curious, and my soul lean into growth. With every act of care, I affirm my worthiness. With every choice for health and healing, I honor the life I am building. I am deserving of wholeness. I am capable of growth. And I am worthy of love, especially my own. And so it is.
And so it is.
I love prayers. I'm glad we started incorporating this every episode.
Yeah, I know. I probably annoy some people, but I don't care.
Yeah.
They'll learn to love it too.
Why are you triggered? Maybe that's the real question, huh, guys? For our affirmations today, caring for myself is not selfish. It is necessary, sacred, and life-giving. Every small act of self-care is a step toward the strongest version of me. I honor my body with rest, my mind with growth, and my spirit with love. And then I set boundaries with courage, knowing they protect my peace and energy. For our exercise today, let's do a self-care alignment exercise. As we do, sit comfortably, close your eyes, and just take 3 slow breaths. On each inhale, silently say, I receive care. And on the exhale, I release what drains me. Check in with yourself. What do I need today for rest? What do I need this week for my health? What do I need this month for my growth? Really reflect on this. It's all about those little steps we can take. And in this type of perspective, we can really work with ourselves to start making an actionable plan. Now, when you choose that action, make it small and doable. Start small. If it's exercise, make it just going to the gym or going for a walk around your neighborhood. Maybe it's just drinking more water and you want to get yourself a cup that has like the measurements on it. Just fill it up once a day. Get that intake of hydration. And lastly, say it out loud. I honor myself by choosing this care, and I am worthy of the energy, health, and growth it brings. If we embody that, we are doing these things to care for ourselves, to nourish ourselves, we stop making it something that seems like an obstacle or something that's going to kill us, and make it something that's really just going to help us become a greater version of ourselves. It helps us flourish. Thank you so much for joining us today. I did forget a journaling prompt. With love and gratitude. Ad Lucium.
Ad Lucium.